Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today we have a special guest, Becky Ogden. She is a mother of three and founder of the Divorced Women's Social Guild. She is a divorced girl with an irreverent streak who wants to find other divorced women with irreverent streaks to go do fun stuff.
That works.
Awesome. Welcome, Becky. It is a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, how are you doing today?
I mean, I'm pretty good. Getting ready to go out with my best friend and her mom's best friend to go see something. I'm not sure what, but it'll be a good time.
Whoa, awesome. So please share with us your story. Did you become a single parent by choice or by accident?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you'd say, it's technically choice, but I don't know that, it wasn't my first choice, I guess you could say. I was married for many, many years. I met my ex-husband in 1992, my freshman year in college. So I was 18 and he was 19. We were in the Greek system at the University of Washington. And all the stuff that I didn't know then about childhood trauma, mental illness, addiction, the nervous system, all that stuff really, came back to bite me later on in our marriage. He was probably already at least a problem drinker and maybe an alcoholic in the early stages of alcoholism when we met, but I just didn't know it because I didn't know enough. We were in the Greek system. He was in a fraternity. Everybody's drunk, So, and he was functional. He was doing all the things and stuff, and stayed that way for many years. The first 14 years or so of our marriage was overwhelmingly good. He was a good husband and a really good father. And then because alcoholism is a chronic progressive disease, it always gets worse without treatment and intervention. It got worse. And so, yeah, he unfortunately, all the childhood demons that he didn't deal with and wouldn't deal with, he was numbing out with alcohol, and it got worse and worse and worse. To the point where I finally had to, this is a toxic, very unhealthy home environment for our kids. Now, I should have been enough on my own. It should have been enough for me to go, this is a really toxic, unhealthy situation for me. But you'll do things for your kids that you won't do for yourself. You'll tolerate things yourself that you won't tolerate for your kids, or at least I would hope. So for my kids, I stuck it out until I knew that he would not fight me for custody, or the courts would give me full custody because he was so far gone. I did not want our children left with him by themselves. And so I stayed longer than I should have, but I didn't feel like I had another choice. So we split, and I have not had any direct contact with him since June of last year. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's the broad version with not very many details. Lead the way. Well, ask me whatever you want to know.
Was there anything you struggled with when you became a single parent?
Well, so we separated in January of 2019. And I struggled with the fact that I loved the man I married. I loved him, and I hated, still hate seeing him struggle. And I knew that his life was going to hell. And it didn't make me happy. I wasn't one of those women that just hates her husband or hates her ex-husband. I mean, like, I love the guy I married. I don't like the version he is now. So I hated that he was struggling, and I knew it, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I did, our youngest daughter was very angry at me for staying as long as I did. And which is unusual. She was 10 at the time, when we separated, and most kids are angry because you leave, and mine was angry because I stayed. And just doing the trying to explain to a 10-year-old what was going on. And our oldest was 20, and he had kind of put his life on hold for a little bit because he didn't want to leave me and his sisters alone with their dad while he was coming unraveled. And so I struggled a lot with how many boundaries were crossed with, especially with our oldest, but even with our oldest two, who our second child was 17 at the time. So that really sucked. Just, so we were separated for a couple of years before I was like, I've had it, that's enough. And in the wake of I've had it, that's enough, he did something. We tried to reconcile. I let him move back into the house, which was a bad idea, a really bad idea. And we separated in the wake of him doing something that I don't ever talk about publicly because it involves other people. I share that story privately when there's a reason to. But nonetheless, what he did had me call the cops, and he was arrested and led away from the house in handcuffs. That was very traumatic for everybody. It was awful. And my house no longer felt like a home. I was, since I was dealing with a man who was doing things that the guy I married would never do. So he was somebody unrecognizable to us. I didn't know what he was capable of because I never saw this coming. And so I was afraid to be in the house, and the house felt poisoned. And so I had to sell a house that I never planned on selling, and move. And so I had to pack everything up myself and move, and that was very difficult. And then once the house sold, I spent 3 months on the road with my youngest daughter, because she's the only one of my kids who's still a minor. She's 15 now. And we drove across the country. We went to see my oldest, who was stationed in Virginia at that then. And then we hugged the coast of the eastern and southeastern parts of the US, and we're looking for where we were going to be next, and traveled. And that was fun and hard. We're unpacking and packing and unpacking and packing every couple of days. And that was difficult. So yeah, it was, I am lucky in that the struggles that most women seem to have when they are newly divorced are financial. I don't have those problems. I mean, I'm not like flush with money and I can just spend however I want, but I am not worried about keeping food on the table for my kid. I have lots of support. I'm spending a couple of months with my mom before my son gets married. Well, I was spending a couple of months with my mom. My brother is in an equally toxic situation, and he has returned. And so he is with my mom right now, and I will not put myself in the same room with my brother at this point. So I am no longer at my mom's. So that's another upheaval. And, yeah. So I'm at my best friend's house now. And then, my daughter and I are going to hit the road again for a couple of days and go see something else while we wait for my mom and my brother to sort out whatever he's going to sort out. And maybe we'll come back, and maybe we won't. And if we won't, then I've got to figure out where to go next. And it's just a lot.
Yeah, you got a lot.
Yeah. So
what kind of carried you through all that? What kept you going?
I mean, I have a kid to think about. I can't just fall apart.
Right.
I mean, she does, it's not like I split from her dad, and he's a great father, and he can take her, and so I've got a solid co-parent that maybe our marriage just didn't work out, but he's a great dad. No, he's out of the picture. He is no contact with our child, and so if I fall apart too, then she's got two worthless parents, and what's going to happen to her? So
Right.
it's not an option.
You're right. You're right. What started you? Like, how did you create that divorce women social guild? How how
ah
did, how did that
yeah.
start?
That started because most of my friends are happily married, and I want them to stay that way. It's better for them, and I love my friends. It's better for them to be married. It's better for their kids to have them happily married. It's better for society as a whole when more people are happily married. I want them to stay happily married. However, I need friends who understand what I'm going through right now. And so I looked around, and there are a lot of groups on Facebook for divorced women. Cool. I joined a couple, and what they seem to be, they serve a purpose, and I'm not bashing them, but what they seem to be is places that are people are coming to dump their woes, like to go and complain about their upcoming divorce or whatever. And I'm not, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for other people who are a little bit like me, to go have fun with, to go, to make some friends, to do some fun stuff, to build some friendships, to build a community. Like I'm almost 50, and I am preparing to move with my daughter to Florida. My son is being stationed in Key West next, and so we want to be a little bit closer to him. He he'll be there for 2.5 or 3 years, which will get my daughter through high school. And we haven't been able to be on the same side of the country or the world, depending on which duty station it was, for with him since for 4 years. It's been 4 years that he's been enlisted, and I can't pass this up. So we're gonna move over there. But regardless of where you are, unless you're in the Keys, you're at least 4.5 hours away. And so I'm going to be in an area where I know no one, and I don't have any backup at all. Like if I get sick, well, my daughter doesn't have a driver's license yet. If I, and she's, whatever, if I hurt myself, what am I going to do? How am I going to, manage? If I was where I am right now, I have my mom, I have my best friend and her family. I have, a handful of people that, that I already could count on, but I don't want to be here. I don't like it here. I love the people here. I don't like it in Washington State. But so, and like, I need to build community where, where I end up. And so let's just start online. Let's, find some people that we can hang out with and have a good time with. And I put that out there and created it. And here I am. And I've got a couple of virtual events on the calendar. I do 2 social hours every month that are free. I've got a craft day coming up. We're going to make intention octopi. They're cute little felted octopus creatures that I don't know, like there's somebody has an article, I think it's out on Medium or something. It's about intentions and octopi and stuff. And it was really cool. I was like, hey, that's awesome. Let's do that. And so we're going to craft those together, and I'll share a little bit out of that article and stuff. Cause I mean, as a divorced woman, you need intention to create something new, or you just stay miserable. And I don't want to stay miserable. So yeah, that's how it came to be.
Yeah, I love that because life is too short. We have this tombstone with 2 dates and the dash in between, and that dash is a life. And we
Yeah.
gotta make that dash shine because life is too short, being miserable and happy and waste your energy on doing things that you don't like. We gotta
Mm-hmm.
go follow our dreams. And speaking of that, do you have a dream?
Do I have a dream? Well, I mean, I have a dream that is never going to be, and so I am working on a dream that is that might be. I mean, clearly, life can change in one single instant. Like my life completely, was like, woo! It was not a slow, gradual thing. One night did us in, and changed my life. I'm no longer in Arizona. I'm no longer near my oldest daughter. I no longer have a husband that I might want to reconcile with. My kids no longer have a father that is engaged and active in their lives. I mean, one instant undid that. So I don't know that I have a dream per se, but I am on a quest to heal the soul wounds in me that allowed me to that had me allow a very unhealthy situation once I recognized that it was a pattern of behavior and not a oops, I made a mistake or a moment of inconsideration to continue. I don't regret it because I have 3 kids that are the biggest blessings of my life. And I wouldn't have if I had put a stop to that when I realized it was a pattern. But that's something not great in me. And so I have a dream to heal that, to be the kind of person who is whole and healthy on her own, regardless of what other people say or do, and provide a place for other divorced women who aren't interested in being victims. That's really critical. People that want to stay mired in victim mode are not going to like my group. They won't like me. But a place where we can go and we can have fun and we can build that community out and the support so that those of us who are living by ourselves aren't entirely by ourselves anymore.
I love that. And it is true. It is possible, to find that, to heal yourself and to be happy on your own. Because we already complete on the inside, but we always seek happiness on the outside and the next event, next circumstance or person that comes along. But it is possible to find that. And I love that, this is your dream. And yay.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. I'm not going to pretend like I've got it all figured out and all solved. I don't. I have my own, childhood issues that led me that way. And I have my own, my shadow self is like, yeah, I love making you feel worthless. There's something just like, the inner bitch in me is like, yeah, let me out. I'm meaner to myself than anything else, and I must get something out of it. Or it would stop. And so my job is to figure out what that is. And that's not something that a lot of people are open to. The idea that they're getting something out of it, that the conditions of their lives right now are a direct reflection of how they feel about themselves and the choices that they're making.
That's right. Our life is what we think about, what we constantly tell ourselves when nobody is watching, the thoughts that create everything in our experience. And then we get ourselves into circumstances that we think that somebody put us in. Meanwhile, it was us all along. But it's a thing to tell yourself that this is my role. I did it, instead of like pointing, oh, it's your fault.
Right. And you want to avoid victim blaming. Like, I didn't ask for any of the stuff that my ex-husband did. That is not my fault. But that the fact that I was there with him is my responsibility, because I chose that. I chose that every step of the way and betrayed myself over and over and over again to do it, because, well, on the outside, I'm telling myself it's because I love him. And but really, yes, I did love him, and I do love the man I married. But there's more to it than that. It's, feeding this need of mine to not be rejected and abandoned. It's making sure that I don't feel guilty about walking away, because I sort of do. My tender heart goes, I left him when he was at his absolute worst. And when I said my vows, I meant them. And so to walk away from my vows is like, I feel horribly guilty about that. And I don't want to feel guilty. And so, I endured that longer than I should have. I mean, those are just a couple of the revelations that I've had about myself as I've been doing that, the kind of deep shadow work that I've been doing, that I want to lead some of the women in my group who are open to it through. It's a book called Existential Kink by Carolyn Elliott. I led a book club through that last part of last year and then into this year, and it was literally transformational if you're open to the idea, but not everybody is. So
yes. I love that. If you could go back in the past, would you do anything differently?
Knowing what I know now, or I just have to start over where I was. Which one?
Let me rephrase the question. If you could go back and give advice to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Oh man, my 18-year-old self. I mean, herein lies the problem. If I change the decisions that I made, I don't have the kids that I have. And for them, I would do everything that I did all over again. However, I think that, well, so that's a really hard question to answer. It feels like it should be simple. Yeah, I saved myself a lot of aggravation and a lot of grief and a lot of heartache and a lot of emotional abuse. But changing anything would be changing the decision that I made. So if I didn't know what I would be missing out on, I would tell myself, you don't belong in a relationship right now. You are not healthy enough emotionally for a relationship. You are looking for him to fill some sort of emptiness in you. And he's doing the same thing, even though you don't know it, because you don't know enough about the nervous system and emotional regulation and stuff right now. But you two are pairing because you're right now, your swoons are meeting each other's needs. And it feels like love. And it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a big problem when his soul wounds start to expand and you start trying to heal yours. But to tell myself that, I don't know that I would have understood it, first of all, because all of that requires experience and wisdom and the information that I've learned about the nervous system and emotional regulation and how trauma works and all that. And I didn't have any of that information at 18. But failing that, I would have said, when you left your husband in 2019, when you were like, no, I can't do this anymore, you won't get help, and this is unsustainable for us, I would have stayed gone. I wouldn't have tried. I would advise myself not to try to reconcile, because it just wasn't going to work. And I knew in my heart of hearts that it wasn't going to work, but I was just like, oh, maybe he just needs a little bit more time, a little more understanding, like, really? No, he didn't. And you put yourself and your kids through more heartache and more aggravation. And so that I might change, but to change that would also change the course of where everything went from there. And, my oldest daughter is married to a wonderful young man that she met before, right a year or so before her dad and I started disintegrating. But they were friends. They started dating when the year that we separated. And he's delightful and I love him, and he's really, really good to my daughter. And my son is engaged to a delightful young woman that he wouldn't have met had he, had things been different. Had he not stayed at home the extra 2 years that he did, he would have missed her. And he's happy and content, and that's all I want for my kids. And so to change that would, I don't know. I mean, it's just the ripples of decisions and stuff. So no, I wouldn't change anything, but I would advise myself to, I wish everybody knew stuff about the nervous system and stuff about how trauma works and everything. It's transformational for my parenting. It's transformational for my personal growth, and everybody should know it.
Yeah.
And it's not taught.
You're right. You're totally right. We go to school and we don't really learn anything how to have a life after school, whether
Correct.
dealing with emotions, making money, or surviving tough circumstances and situations. We are not really prepared until it happens, and then you kind of forced to figure things out.
Or not, and a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
So
what do you think is the most important trait to instill in a child?
The most important trait to instill in the child. Well, coming from a situation where my kids were raised in a home that was mired with addiction and mental illness from one parent. See, my ex-husband, he had that from both parents. My kids only got it from one, so they had a relatively healthy parent also. So yay me. But my kids need to learn how to. They needed to and did learn how to let other people's monkeys stay in other people's circuses. And really, really mind their own business. Is that my business? Is that the other person's business? Is that God's business? And only take on the stuff that's my business. And my oldest and youngest are very, very good at that, to the point almost where they've gone too far, where it's like, they both have kind of questioned, do I lack empathy here, or am I just really rock solid boundaries? And my middle is more of a tender heart like me, and she struggles a little bit more with that, but not nearly as much as I did. My kids all have better boundaries than I did, and do. I still struggle with that. So, just having a firm sense of self and what's my business and what's not my business, I think is really crucial. I mean, that's one of the things, but
we don't want to take on other people's emotions or other people's stuff. We gotta stick to ourselves.
Yeah, stay in your own lane. I was talking to my son last night about the situation with my mom and my brother, and it's just not a great thing. And I was like, am I the jerk here? And he's like, Mom, you're talking to the wrong person here. I have a set of shears on standby to, cut those, and I'll leave the expletive. It was not a nice expletive out. I'm not offended by coarse language, but I don't want to put that on your audience, out of my life. I was like, dang, and so, it really is, they really do stay in their own lane, and if just because they're family doesn't mean that they can treat you like crap. And that's a good thing for my kid, for any kid to learn too. Family does not entitle you to be a jerk.
Right. Yeah, totally.
So,
what is your superpower, if you have one?
My superpower. I am really, 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 really good at connecting people with other people and resources that they need in order to accomplish something that they want or need to accomplish.
Nice.
Yeah. I've been doing that in one capacity or another for most of my adult life. I'm very good at it, and it's super fun. So, yeah.
Cool. Is there any fun projects you're working on that you like to share?
Well, I mean, I'm building out the virtual calendar right now for the Divorced Women's Social Guild, slowly plugging things into it. It's hard to do when I know I'm not going to be in one spot for very long until July, but I'm working on it. And so, put up some stuff periodically, like this Arts and Crafts Day and the virtual social hours and stuff. But I am going to build out a complete calendar of events. And then I will start looking for other other people whose audiences are also divorced women, whose businesses can be tailored to run a virtual event of some sort, that's fun. Like I'm not down for for heavy duty information load kind of learning workshop. Though my group is all about fun, so it's got to be fun stuff. But some cool things. Maybe I've got a Facebook friend who's a Christian numerologist, and I think it would be super dope to have her come in and do some, run a workshop on numerology for whoever in my group wants to do that. I haven't talked to her about it yet, but I will. And so things like that, somebody can run a yoga session or whatever online, and all that. So I'm looking for anybody who has stuff that could be easily adapted for a virtual event for divorced women, to stick on the calendar. Once I get settled wherever I end up in Florida, which is likely to be somewhere in the Fort Myers area, I will start building out the local in-person component of that pretty quickly. And then eventually it's retreats or trips. Actually, not retreats. I don't really want to run a retreat. I want to run a trip. I want to go cool places. And I'm not opposed to traveling by myself, but it might be fun to travel with some other divorced women and go see cool things and stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about right now.
Cool, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I spoke to, I don't know if they still exist, but I had somebody, a community called Divorced Over 40. I don't know if you've heard of that community, and they take trips, they do fun things to
cool.
Because it's like divorcing is like you're starting over. You need to get new friends, because your old friends don't get you anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly why I started what I do, and I'm actually really glad to hear that there's another group that does that. I know there are several that have Zoom meetings and stuff, but my philosophy on that kind of stuff is that there are so many divorced people that there's no way all of the groups that exist that do this kind of stuff can serve everybody. And the vibe of the group is going to be different based on who's leading it. And I'm pretty much a no-nonsense, really irreverent. I love to slaughter sacred cows. I have a really dark, twisted sense of humor. I swear. My kids are my friends. And that's just me. And not everybody's going to like that. And that's okay. If you don't like that, I want you to go away. I don't want you to come into my group. I will help you find somewhere else to go. And and so somebody else might be a real proper more, we do things this way, and we're soft spoken and we're sweet and stuff, and that's great, because there are people that need that too. Then there might be a biker chick leading it. I'm not a biker, so what, it's just more options is good.
Of course, yes. Totally.
So yeah,
that's pretty awesome. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I mean, for divorced women who have kids, and who have not done this already, it would be a great idea to start learning about the nervous system and emotional regulation and everything, and share what you're learning with your kid. My older two were too old to benefit from the wisdom that I have gained over the last 2 years, because they're both adults, and I don't have ready daily access to them anymore. They live on their own, and they have their own jobs and everything. But my youngest has been, and so when I started talking to her at 8, 9 years old about daddy's circus and daddy's monkeys being sick and keep them out of your circus, that has grown and evolved to the point where she and I have developed our own lexicon, our own vocabulary and set of metaphors about the conditions of our own nervous systems at any given point in time. And so we have an ability now that I did not have with my older two to talk about what's going on internally, rather than just focusing on the behavior that's happening externally. And it's not just about, modifying my kids' behaviors or explaining my kids' behaviors. It's explaining my own to them as well. So I can, when I'm all out of sorts, I can look at my kid and go, yeah, my tamer is doing a crappy job of wrangling all those monkeys right now. I'm getting beat up. And she knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then she can be like, oh, okay, well, so you're being snappy and snippy because you are overwhelmed, not because you're mad at me. It's been transformational in our relationship. And I don't think that we would have weathered all of the upheaval and the trauma that we have endured over the last couple of years as well as we did without having that in place. So I would encourage people to learn more and share with your kids more about your own internal world and how your nervous system is navigating things.
I love that. Totally.
Yeah.
Is there any other advice for single parents that you like to share?
Oh, I mean, be mindful of the stories you tell yourself about yourself, about your marriage, about your divorce, about your future, about your ex-husband. I could tell myself very terrible stories. My ex-husband didn't love me at all, and he loved his alcohol more than he loved me, and he's a horrible, wretched human being, and that just makes me miserable. Or I can tell myself my ex-husband loved us as best as he could, and he was very ill. He was his nervous system was so dysregulated that he felt like he needed the alcohol and couldn't recognize that the alcohol was what was destroying his life. He thought it was saving him. And that generates different feelings in me than he didn't love me and he loved his alcohol more, And so which story would I rather tell myself? Which story would I rather have my kids tell themselves? I'd rather have the second one. And so just be mindful of the stories you tell yourself, because they will create the results that you're getting in your life.
Totally. There is a great book by Marissa Peer, Tell Yourself Better Lies. Because we constantly tell ourselves lies. What if we tell a lie that's actually beneficial?
Well, or how about the truth? I think, which is in my book even better. Ferret that out to what's the objective circumstance. The objective circumstance is that my ex-husband is struggling with alcoholism. It is not there's no story attached to that at all. Anybody can see it. Anybody would agree. What are the thoughts that I can tell myself about that? Well, there are a lot of thoughts I can tell myself about that. Some of them are very disempowering and some of them are more hopeful. And then what kind of emotions do each of those stories create? Do I like feeling those emotions? Do I want to feel those emotions? What kind of actions am I taking as a result of how I feel? What kind of results am I getting as a result of those actions? And if I don't like those, then I have to change my thoughts, but not gaslight myself in the process. So I don't want to lie to myself. I don't want to tell myself things that my brain can't accept either. Like I can affirm that my life is fabulous and wonderful and I've got $1 million, all that I want, but my brain doesn't believe it. It's not objectively true. And so I'd rather go, it's possible that my life can be wonderful again. And that, and okay, my brain will be like, okay, Becky, I can believe that. It's possible. Sure. And so we'll work our way up to, yes, this is a fact. So, keep it real.
All right. Awesome. If people would like to learn more about your divorce guild, where would they go?
Well, the group is on Facebook right now. And I'm building out a website for it very, very slowly. So if they search for it, it's going to give them a 404 error message right now. But so right now is what we are at the very beginning of April in 2024, right? Yeah. So eventually, hopefully not too long, I'll have a website of some sort put up for it. But my personal page, the overwhelming majority of the stuff on my personal page is public. As well. And I speak very openly about my journey, my healing process, what I'm doing, all that stuff. So I'm easy to connect with there as well. I'm not active on any other platforms right now. I've got presences on other platforms, but I don't do anything with them because master one. master one first and then expand to another. So that's what I'm doing.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure to have you. We'll include everything in episode notes. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and I love what you have created, the divorce social guilt. I think that is incredible.
Yeah. Thank you much. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and hope that anything that that I have said helps somebody. That's really the goal, to redeem the pain with helping somebody else.
That's right. That's the whole purpose of this podcast, is to provide tools, tips, resources for single parents to thrive.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
Thank
Thank
you.
you much.